again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Primetime Muscle. I'm Tim Wilkins, as always, joined by the one and only Tarek Elgindi.
Thank you, Tim Wilkins, the greatest, most iconic host in bodybuilding television, Tim Wilkins, and my great friend from Palm Springs, currently living in El Cajon, Chris Cormier. How are you?
Thank you very much for the introduction. I feel pleased to be here with you. And you also.
I didn't know that's where you lived, so you are officially one of the El Cajones now.
Cajones.
Yes.
Big Cajones.
Outstanding. Yes. Well, we had an amazing Olympia, and we talked a couple episodes out before the Olympia about the top coaches and who was bringing who and who was under whose care. And you know, there's been some jockeying already post-Olympia. With Blessing leaving George Farah. A couple guys, Nick Walker got back with his coach just before the Olympia. But Hany Rambod had a special weekend.
Yes, Hany Rambod has been a coach for quite a while. On his resume, he has guys such as Phil Heath, Jay Cutler. He has many great champions. This was a special Mr. Olympia for him. And I believe that this was the greatest performance by a bodybuilding coach in the history of bodybuilding. And I'm going to explain you why. First, he had the Mr. Olympia, Hady Choopan. But it's not only that Hady won, is the strategy that Hany Rambod took with Hady, which was, let's get big, not too big where your waist is going to come out. Let's add the conditioning and let's see what happens. And it turned out to be a great strategy. He's also a great strategist outside of the stage. You know, Derek Lunsford, he does the 212. He does the guest posing in Pittsburgh. You know, there's high talks about him going into the open. You know, all that. Hany is behind all that. He's a very intelligent guy, and he makes all those decisions that benefit his athletes, himself, and his company. In addition to that, he has the number 1 and 2. In addition to that, you look at the classic physique, and he wins with Chris Bumstead. Now, a lot of people say, and Chris is one of them, don't deny it, that Hany just takes guys, you know, once they're champions. Well, there is some truth to that because Chris Bumstead was already a champion.
Just the facts.
No, you're right. Chris Bumstead was already a champion. But with that, there's a level of pressure. Meaning, Chris Bumstead wins 3 times, and then he gets with Hany, and something goes wrong, everybody's going to look at Hany and say, you messed him up. He was winning without you, and now he goes, but that didn't happen. On the contrary, Tim, Chris, the opposite happened. He got better with Hany. He was more dominant with Hany. So Hany wins the Olympia with 1 and 2 punch, and then he wins the classic physique. That is, in my opinion, the greatest coaching performance.
So, Chris, I'm backstage with Phil Heath doing the pay-per-view. Hany's running around, and he looked like one of those fathers from the old 40s and 50s movies putting cigars in everybody's mouth. It's a boy. He had the number 1 and 2 after open prejudge. I mean, that's insanely cool.
That's saying something. That's I mean, that's haven't been done since '99 with Chad having the top 3 guys. Same thing. But it's all tough. You know, running around as a coach, and I'm telling you, coming from one room to the next guy room, you know, hopefully they're all in the same hotel, but I know they was not in the same hotel. So to do that, I think, you know, speaks volumes for, I mean, the effort behind it all. Coming from the prejudging that was late at night to Bumstead being on stage early in the morning, basically not being able to go to sleep. So not going to sleep and handling top guys like that that's going for the world championships, that's, I mean, you got to take your hat off. And I told Hany that, I said, man, that was pretty remarkable, but to be in charge of that, just the burden alone of being in charge of someone's career choices at that top-notch level, that's pretty incredible. I told him that maybe like 2 or 3 times. He'll tell you.
Now, I want to throw this out to both of you because there was some talk about this, about how late men's open prejudge started on Friday night. Now, okay, we can say, hey, you should have had a different call time, or hey, that's the breaks. I don't know how many shows, national level shows, I've been at or in where you know, it's a long show. You just got to do what you have to do to be in the best shape you can be in.
To be fair, Tim, sometimes we went from United States to Europe and compete. You know, you're not, you know, you're jet lagged. You're not at your best when it comes to getting the proper sleep and rest and all that stuff. So sometimes you just got to man up and be the professional it takes. It's not going to always be perfect. Sometimes we went to go and compete and we didn't get a chance to pump up because we were so late to get there because we had a delay on the airplane going from 4 different countries in 4 different days and 4 different shows.
But Hany managed that like a boss.
Sometimes it's hard. Yeah.
He managed those peaks for both of those guys really, really well.
And Chris was definitely at his all-time best condition. So, you know, that was a great move for him. You know, and no one's perfect. Everyone can still all improve. All those guys can still be better than what they were. That's the scary part.
You know, you're right, Tim. Hany, despite the timing, he was able to adjust all his guys to be in top conditioning. I mean, you can't say Sebum, Derek Lunsford, or Hany were out of shape. They were in great shape, and they got on stage the same time that the other guys got on stage. And as a great coach and as a great athlete, you gotta have something you called contingency time, right? Where not everything goes your way, but you're still able to deal with adversity. You thought you were gonna go on stage at 9, you gotta go on stage at 11. It's not the ideal, but you have your food ready, you have your timing ready, and you perform. And if somebody gets in a disadvantage, it's all of them, right? It's not just one guy specifically, it's everybody. So the playing field is the same.
Well, and that's the interesting thing is you got to remember that it's the same for everybody back there saying, do we bring 2 meals? Do we bring 1? How do we time our water when you've got, you know, an extra hour or 2 necessarily to time out your peak?
And some people are going to take that, Tim, and be like, okay, I needed more of this. It's not like an individual thing. Like you start here, you finish there, and it's all one big race to get to the finish line. But to be more prepared mentally, I think that's where you're going to separate the top guys from the not.
Well, and there was this year, I talked about it, 2020 and 2021, there were a lot of guys in men's open prejudge that needed a big towel. They were sweating that layer of film out. They hadn't posed it all out. They hadn't dropped that water. And neither one of Hany's guys had that problem. Neither one of the 3 top guys had any real water issues pulling off the top.
And, you know, just to add, you know, how much precision do you want in the time you go on stage? If you're on the first call out, that first call out might take 7 minutes, might take 12 minutes, might take 2 minutes. Do you want us to adjust the time so when you go on the third call out, it's 8:17 p.m.? No. But at the same time, do I think that if we have a timing where the bodybuilders have an idea when they're going to go on stage, that would be better? I do believe so. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't be ready for contingencies. That's part of your job.
Yes, and it showed who was prepared and who wasn't actually prepared, who was looking for excuses and who was not. That's what bodybuilding is.
And I want to mention Milos Sarcev because Milos, what he did with Simpson Dauda was unprecedented. This guy rose with great force. People were predicting that he was going to be on that first call out based on what they had seen at the Arnold. And it turned out that man was on the first call out, posing right next to Big Ramy and Hany and Derek. He looked massive. He looked confident and impressive. And I think what Milos Sarcev did with Simpson Dauda must be noticed. Great job to Milos. Yeah. Great job to all the coaches. But this was Hany Rambod's historical year.
Milos, Samson was one of the only guys that looked like he did in his contest pictures leading up to the show. You know, 3, 4, 5 weeks out. We talked about this a lot. I said, Samson's going to be a force. And in the next couple of years, Samson's going to be big.
And Milos was right. And he was going to be hopefully in the top 6 the whole year. He was like, I'm telling you, you know, he's going to be in the top 6. He's going to be in the top 6. So, yeah, shout out to Milos for that.
Well, shout out to Milos for calling his shots. And speaking of things we need to call an end to this first segment as we roll into our first break on Primetime Muscle.
You diet down, train hard, and supplement smart for months. When the time comes to step on stage, don't leave your tan to chance. Go with the pros. Pro Tan. #1 worldwide since 1987 and the official sponsor of the Olympia for the last 15 years. Don't step on stage without it. Pro Tan.
All right, next up on Primetime Muscle, we're talking about, I actually had to Google this. I'm familiar with the sport, but sometimes you throw out something that makes us go,
What?
what? Ricardo Pannain is a very, very successful coach in both wellness and bikini and probably other things, but he had a great weekend at this year's 2022 Olympia.
Yes, Ricardo Pannain is one of the greatest female body. He coaches men as well, but one of the greatest, most successful coaches in bodybuilding, and he has displayed something in this Mr. Olympia that is unprecedented. He won in the bikini category with Maureen Blanquisco, and he won in the wellness category with Franciele Matos. I want to give a little bit of background of Ricardo Pannain. He was born in Brazil, born in Rio de Janeiro, and he's been a coach for a long time. We're talking about 20 to 25 years of experience coaching professional athletes. And actually, his wife, Hany Freitas, is a IFBB pro female bodybuilding. In the 2014 Mr. Olympia, she placed 6th. So he's been coaching for a long time, different categories. And this is not the first time he's successful at an Olympia. You see, he won with Maureen Blanquisco in bikini. What people don't know is that he won in 2019 with Isa Piscini in bikini. What people don't know is that he already won the wellness the first year with Franciele Matos. So we're talking about dominant performance by a coach that does not live in the United States, but he's able to coach people all over the world and bring them to the best performance possible so that they can prevail on the Mr. Olympia stage. This guy is damn good.
So Isa is in, I believe, Tampa now. She's somewhere in Florida. And then where's Franciele?
Franciele actually lives in Brazil. And something interesting about Franciele Matos is she kind of, I wouldn't say hibernate, but she stays in the dark most of the year. And when I say in the dark is she's married, she's got kids, and once she wins the Olympia, she focused strictly on her children. And Ricardo Pannain has been able to coach her with that kind of lifestyle. He doesn't require her to do a lot of crazy videotaping, crazy workouts. He almost like a decompressing time for her. And then when it gets closer to the Olympia, you can start seeing her getting leaner and leaner, start getting ready to compete. And then he's able to deal with Isa Piscini, who he's been training since she was 18 years old. So since she was 18 and turned pro in Rio de Janeiro, he was able to get her from that point to the Mr. Olympia. Maureen Blanquisco is not Brazilian, okay? She's in Europe competing, and she connects with Pannain and starts training with him, and now he delivers an Olympia performance.
Maureen is what, I think Dutch?
She is Norwegian.
Norwegian.
Yes, Norwegian. And she's won a few shows in Europe, and then she comes to America. Now, granted, this is not a champion that wasn't around. We talked about her on Primetime Muscle as somebody who could surprise everybody, and she did. Last year, she placed 4th.
We actually got this one right.
We did, yes.
Yeah.
We predicted that Maureen Blanquisco could shock the world, and so she did. Credit to her coach, Ricardo Pannain. Great job.
Well, Chris, you don't see a lot of this, and this is very odd. This is kind of the Kimoto of Brazil. In your experience, are there other coaches that have crossed disciplines like that by themselves without other mini coaches underneath them? Like Jamie DeBernard has just a plethora of people that may handle bikini, men's physique, figure, fitness.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. I just seen him and his wife over the past, few years that I've known of them. Just always present at the Arnold Classic, always present at the top shows and everything. Always bringing champions. Nice people. Don't speak too much English. I said hello. We took a photo and stuff like that. But for the most part, great hair, great smile.
Great hair. Glute ham tie-ins. Oh,
yeah.
Whenever you don't know anything about somebody in this business, you can say great hair, great glute ham tie-ins. So, but that's interesting that someone that's that successful for such an entire generation, 20, 25 years in the sport, can be that good and still kind of fly under the radar.
One of the great things about being a coach is you need to stay in the background. The athlete is the star. Okay?
I like that.
The athlete is the star. You are not the star.
Do you see a lot of coaches doing that? Like they want to be the forefront of the guy with the whole thing, and I'm like, man, you should be more like let them do their thing. Your journey's behind theirs, not in front of theirs.
Yeah, and I think especially with the women, I'll tell you that if you're a female coach and you're trying to coach female athletes and you want to be the star, women will not tolerate that. They're paying you so they can be the star, not you. And with Ricardo Pannain, there's a sense that he's behind the curtains. He does a few interviews, and his job is just to make sure the competitors deliver a great performance. It has never been part of his strategy to be the star, to overpower the competitors. And one of the things about him that it's quite strange, people don't often leave him. They stay with him for like 5, 6, 7 years. They retire with him. We see so much turnover in our industry in terms of coaching. Regardless if people win or play second, third, fourth, or even last call out, they stick with him. It's a relationship.
Talk about coaching and talking about the industry as it is today. People change. I feel like they're putting too much on the coach as far as hey, make me a champion. You got to do your part. There's lean foods to eat. There's a cardio machine. There's weights. How much effort you need to put in your own body to bring out your best package. It's not just up to the coach. You have a big part, and you look in a certain way. The show is coming.
Shows have become, coaches have become like supplements. Everybody's looking for the one that's going to be the magic pill, the one that's going to put them over the top. And you're right, it's still at the root of it all, especially being able to coach externally, to have someone like Ricardo who's got a client in Maureen, I think is even in San Diego. Where's home for her, I think? Maureen?
I think she still lives in Europe. I could be wrong.
She won a couple of U.S. shows this year.
She did, yes.
And then you got Issa in Florida, and to have people all over and still be able to connect with them, you give them the check-ins, they got to go do the work all day and for 3 or 4 days until you check in again.
Well, Tim, we live in a very, we need immediate satisfaction. And when a competitor loses, he's got, 2 options to blame.
Point the finger.
He can point the finger to his coach or the judges until somebody with common sense says, you were not as good as the guy that placed ahead of you. And then you come to your senses and say, listen, I should stick with my coach, listen to the judges, and come back better. That's what Natalia Coelho has done. I am a firm believer that you should not change coaches very often. That just tells me that you don't know the direction to go, you're not trusting, you're just kind of confused. Stick with one coach that has a great reputation. It's not a 1-year process. Maureen Blanquisco didn't win her first Mr. Olympia with Pannain. Issa Piscini had been with Pannain since she was 18. Franciele Matos has been with Pannain for a long time. It took time for them to become champions, for these great coaches to find out what their bodies react, for them to prevail on stage. Don't switch coaches just because you placed third instead of second.
Yeah, it takes time to get to know someone's physique, to know, okay, when you enter this type of food, your body reacts in this manner. When you enter this type of stress from the cardio or whatever, your body reacts in this manner. It takes time for that to happen. Sometimes they just want immediate satisfaction. They don't get it, they go off to the next thing.
Well, like the people that are jumping ship 3 weeks out before a show and hoping some coach can latch on to them, figure it out, dial it in for a big show like the Arnold Classic.
Come on, guys, you got to do it. You got to do it right.
So speaking of Natalia and coaches that had a big weekend, Kenny Wallach had a big 2022. I think he had 67 pro card wins. And then another 8 to 12 pro wins. But he was sitting in the audience with Natalia's mom, just pumping his fist like Tiger Woods, and just over the moon that she was had such a great prejudge.
Yeah, I like the consistency. And one thing I want to mention is this, guys. It's a controversial topic, but we have to be there. You need to do your homework when you pick a coach. And my experience is when you're first getting introduced to the industry, you interview with some of these coaches. I've seen people travel to interview with Kimoto, interview with Jamie de Bernard. Hey, Ricardo Pannain is coming for the Arnold. Can I spend an hour with you talking about what your coaching methods are? People fly all over the world to see Chris Cormier. They want to see, okay, what's the intensity that Chris Cormier brings to the training? So don't just pick somebody because he posted on Instagram that he has 17 million pro cards, okay? Go, yeah, that's the new thing.
I know.
CEO of Team Jackass. I have won 37 million pro cards. I have 38 million IFBB pro victories. No, you don't. Nobody knew who you were last year, Jackass.
Anything to add to that? Are we good?
Just the facts.
Just the facts.
Just the facts.
Just the facts.
Well, congratulations to both the winners, Francesca Matos and Maureen Blanquisco, who we're going to be talking about in just a minute. And, of course, to their below-the-radar, super awesome 25-year pro coach, Ricardo Pannain.
We love those coaches like that.
Oh, yeah, on his great weekend. We're going to be back and talk about Maureen Blanquisco in just a minute on Primetime Muscle. This year's Olympia saw a big shock in bikini, and there were some former Olympians on that stage. There were some competitors that everybody kind of had odds-on favorite. But I want to say, we said, we had an episode where we said, I don't know who's going to shock this, but we had a couple of picks who might be, some wild cards to mix things up. And each of us said Maureen Blanquisco for bikini. And lo and behold, here's our new Olympia.
She was on the rise. She placed 4th last year, and she beat Isa Piscini. So that's a sign that she was on the rise. She already beat a Miss Olympia bikini. Maureen Blanquisco is not new to the winning circle. She had won multiple shows in Europe. She came to the United States and she won shows here. So she was on the rise. I personally was not surprised. She was right there in the center, battling it out. And nobody that knows this sport was surprised that Maureen Blanquisco was fighting for the title. And boy, when she came on stage for the finals, I said to myself, she is super good.
As do I. And you see the personality, you see the whole, the way she poses, the way she walks, all that stuff is so elegant. So, totally looked like a winner. Dory was right there, and I know she wants to get back on that stage as soon as possible. But you got to tip your hat off to the champion at this time. She was so excited, and it was just great to see someone get that excitement and get that whole, the accolades, being one of the top bikini champions in the world.
Chipping her way up and winning a couple shows this year or last year. So speaking of which, did you judge bikini?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had Ashley Kaltwasser, Isa. You had Jennifer Dory. You had
Daraja Hill.
Oh, yes.
That was your top 4. And then Laura Lee Chapados came in.
Who we had?
No, who was in 5th? I think it was Laura Lee Chapados.
And then Janet was 6th.
Yes.
So, but Laura Lee we kind of had as a wild card because coming into this show, she was odds-on favorite to give Jennifer the biggest run for her money.
Laura Lee was overly conditioned. She looked like, and Laura Lee is amazing, genetically gifted. But Laura Lee bounces around in terms of overly conditioned, a bit too full. Overly conditioned, a bit too full. When she nails, it's very hard to beat. Jennifer Dory was fantastic, phenomenal. Maybe a tad hard which is ironic because when she beat Laura Lee last year is exactly what we were saying to Laura Lee. You're a bit hard. That's why Jennifer Dory beat you. Is that champion? I need to do more than I did last year. And maybe if she was a tad soft, because when you look at Maureen Blanquisco and Jennifer Dory, is the fact that Maureen is softer than Jennifer Dory. Let's go to the board.
Let's go to the board. You see me cocking that leg off like I'm a pulling guard in the NFL.
He's staring at you.
I'm staring at you. Well, I want to get to this because this is another one of those categories, Chris, where you're trying to find that balance between conditioned and soft and not too big and not too small. And, you know, it's the Goldilocks of divisions.
I like the walk. The walk there is
Chris?
Like, some of the girls look like they're trying to put cigarettes out as they walk into the front. I like a nice, elegant, sexy walk like that. That's what I like for bikini.
So not a really defined glute ham tie-in, there's not a lot of, separation going on there.
And that's what we want, Tim. I tell competitors all the time, soft separation between glutes and hamstrings. Perfect. From the back, she was a killer. She killed it from the back with the soft separation. Let's go back to what Chris said, the walk. Her walk is elegant, beautiful, and precise. She's not walking like the devil wears Prada, you know what I mean, on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
The hair is not going everywhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes we see competitors, they touch the hair 17 times. I feel like I'm a Revlon commercial. You know what I mean? Just walk. And her simplicity is what Chris is commanding. And I got to say, is the same thing.
The tan was phenomenal. The pink suit popped it. It was a really great package she brought. She dialed it in all year.
And I got to go back to the simplicity.
Here we go.
You
Here's
know,
your walk.
it's just she's walking normal.
Yeah, it's just good.
It's just good. Girls, don't overdo it.
Man, they walk like a mechanical movement. It's like this is like.
You know, a couple years back we had the side thing. Remember the side thing that we did? The side thing. You know.
You guys look like you're doing the hustle. Like dun, 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 dun.
That's good posing. And let's go back to her physique. We use the word soft. There's no veins. There's no hard separation. Nothing. She is soft. Soft. I repeat, there's a softness to physique. She's holding a little bit of water. She has a little bit of fat on her physique. That's perfectly fine. That's the criteria.
2 weeks out, Issa had a striated vacuum. She could have done classic and taken it to half the competitors.
They get paranoid as competitors. You see it on, they start like posing and showing their veins and this and that. And sometimes it's the nature of the competitor. They want to get bigger, right?
Yeah.
They look at Chris Cormier and Flex Wheeler and they go, oh my God, I got a vein. Let me pop it on Instagram. That's not the sport. In her case, tell me where you see a vein. Nowhere. All you see is that she followed the criteria to the T.
The delts had a... Go ahead, Chris.
Don't you think they overdo, some of the body parts overdo the diet, overdo the cardio? There's some girls, they'll be like, they want to get a lot leaner than that, but the champion is looking like this.
Well, and that's another thing with these coaches, bikini coaches especially. Ladies, do the math. You're an adult, get a calculator out, put it in MyFitnessPal. If your diet doesn't have a comma in it, you don't have a coach. You have a torturer. When you get into the 800-900 calorie range, unless you're 80 pounds, there's no reason to be eating that little.
Sometimes you can see it by the face.
Yeah.
They're sunken in. And look, she doesn't look sunken in. There is a beautiful softness here, and I commend Maureen Blanquisco for nailing. I commend her coach for nailing. And God, I love her posing. I think a lot of the amateurs and the pros need to look at her posing and start copying that. She touched her hair one time during her whole presentation. Her walk was simple.
And don't you think, this is what, you're talking bikini. Bikini is bikini. It's not like, it's almost, okay, there's a bikini competition at your local bar. There's girls that's, looking beautiful, nice bodies. That's kind of what she brought. She brought not like she didn't put the work in. She put the work in because you see the development. But talking overdoing the diet, overdoing whatever you're doing to compete in the competition, I think she just had the right amount of everything.
And going back, Tim, Bikini, soft, beautiful, simplicity on the posing. Sydney Gillen, she didn't have any cross striations anywhere. She had a bit of softness to her physique. You look at Franciele Matos, she's still the champion. She doesn't have veins all over. She's not overly muscular. You look at Natalia Coelho, the champion. Is she big? If she's here next to us, she's still the tiny little girl. You look at Andrea Shaw, she puts on a dress. She's gorgeous. She's got curves all over. Female bodybuilding is not about being shredded and muscular. There's that fine line that you need to add muscle. There's that fine line that you need to get the conditioning, but you need to understand the criteria. None of them were looking like they had striated glutes.
I'd like to think, and we talked about this with Big Steve, and we talked about it especially with Sandy Williamson, I'd like to think that the Olympia winners are the gold standard for each division. And you look at them, and you guys set that standard by judging and saying this is what we're rewarding, and you dialed it down to a more streamlined physique with Erin Banks. You softened Bikini a touch with Maureen Blanquisco. You defined it a little better with Natalia, and with Sydney maintaining and Chris maintaining their titles. You really continue to define what NPC athletes and NPC worldwide should be shooting for if they want to move up the ranks.
Do you think when some people go into competition, there's, say, 10 people who are dieted too much, trained, whatever, too much, and then some people see that and think, oh, that's what I need to look like? Or do you, if it were me, I would try to look like the Miss Olympia Bikini. That's my goal, is to try to look like the champion, to look at the champion of the sport.
And one thing is this, we got to understand the tendencies. I judge tons of amateurs and I judge tons of pros. As an amateur, the tradition is that they don't come in conditioned. You get a first-time competitor as an amateur, his conditioning is not up to par where it should be. It's part of the sport, you come in and your conditioning is not, and then they start getting better. Because we judges say, hey, you just got to come in a little bit more conditioned, right? Once they become pros, they have this paranoia. You write on the feedback, you just need to be a little bit tighter. And they come back with 17 veins on their foreheads. And it's like, we emphasize a little bit, a tad tighter. And they go to the gym and they go, now I gotta eat 1.2 grams of carbs and do 74 hours of cardio. That's not it.
The sunken
Relax.
face.
Look at this. Softness. Be soft. There's, Andrea Shaw, she has a softness, a beauty to her. That's the sport. But it's a tendency, amateur. I need to be more conditioned, and then pros. I need to soften up a little bit.
Let's roll this forward, because there's another thing she did that I absolutely love. You talked about her posing. There's a subtlety with the arm movements that, even right here, but from the front pose, it's very subtle. It's all close to the body.
Yeah, it's nice.
And we talk about this with Sandy. From the front pose, a lot of competitors look like they're rolling dice. They're getting ready to throw the dice. Here it is. She sticks it. Done. Doesn't move. That pose stays there. I know we froze the video, which I like.
No.
But she's not out there and distracting the judges.
You're right. They're not going like this and turning around, and the arms are going everywhere, because that takes away from the physique. When she walks with simplicity, we can start looking at her actual physique. When her arms are going everywhere, touching the hair 74 times, we don't know what we're looking at.
Well, guys, we had an incredible year. It was an incredible Olympia. And as we continue with our Primetime Muscle episodes, we're going to be looking at who is really taking shape for this year, who's going to be making moves. Because this year, every year with Bikini especially, this is one of those ones where there's up-and-comers challenging that top 5 to top 7 spots. And some of these people need to requalify for the Olympia in November.
Oh, boy.
Get it going. Get your qualification, because Ashley Kowalser, she's working diligently for the Mr. Olympia. If it's up to her, there's only 5 people that will qualify for the Olympia, because she wants to win everything.
And that's okay. We don't mind that at all. We're looking forward to this entire season, and we are looking forward to you liking, sharing, subscribing, and following along.
Leave comments, guys.
Leave your comments for how much you always like I just learned this term, the drip of Chris. Drip?
Dripping.
The drip.
Dripping.
Good, I said it right. And it's a thing. I'll explain it to you later. Two Milkins for Primetime Muscle, my good friend Tarek Elgindi, and the Drip Master.
Dripping.
The real deal, Chris Cormier. Thanks as always for joining us. We'll see you next time.